first episode of In the Making. I'm your host, Michael Betz, and I'm also the author of the upcoming book, In the Making, which dives deep into the pivot and detours that shape who we are. This podcast is a place where we have real, raw conversations about the unexpected turns life throws at us and how those moments make us the people who we're meant to become. And honestly, I couldn't have thought of a better guest to kick this off than my bud, dear pal and friend, Stevi Carr. You know, someone who has built a life and career centered around resilience, lifting others up, and so many great things. You know, Stevi and I are kindred souls that we're supposed to meet over the past 20 years. It's serendipity and kind of kismet in regards of both of our very close college friends from different universities ended up marrying each other. We have crossed paths throughout the years, but really have spent this past year really building connectivity and just, you know, really what our friends Dominic and Cammie told us is when you guys meet, you guys are going to become besties. And that's come true. So let me introduce Stevi. And Stevi is the founder and CEO of Wise Wellness Guild. She's the co-founder of WellNext, #1 best-selling author, and a powerhouse in wellness, leadership, and women's advancements. She's been featured in Forbes, Entrepreneur, Fortune, and was just named Inc.'s 2025 Female Founder 500. So yeah, that's awesome. She's a total badass and a rock star. She is part of a new book project with a group of amazing business leaders that will chat a little bit about that in a little bit. So Stevi, welcome, and thank you for helping me launch this journey and being my friend.
Oh my gosh, and being your friend. Listen, I am so grateful that our paths finally crossed again. I think that Dom and Cammie were right that, you know, we were just, when we re-collided, that it was just going to make fireworks. And so I'm thrilled to be here. And honestly, I'm so excited that you're launching into this journey. This podcast is going to be absolutely incredible to inspire so many people to understand that pivots are just a part of the plot, right? It's about another opportunity for us to learn something new and to uncover new opportunities to, you know, propel us forward. So thank you so much for being here. I'm really, really excited.
Well, we're excited to have you. And just a little housekeeping note, the podcast is aligned with the same format and structure of what the upcoming In the Making book comes. So we know not everybody loves to read, but some people love to listen. So this is an opportunity to hopefully get out what you would get with the book or both and just help make your life a better journey. And depending on what path you decide, and remember, you have to decide that, that's what In the Making is all about. More to come.
Yes, very, very exciting, and excited to be able to dive into the book. I know that you and I have a big launch coming up, and so excited to be able to dive in on all things along the journey and the pivots.
Love it.
Great.
More to come. Now, a quick word from our partners, and then we'll return to In the Making podcast. I'm back. It's Michael Betz, your host of In the Making podcast and the proud president and managing partner of the Proper Group. The past year, transforming the Proper Group has been one of the most exhilarating and rewarding experiences in my life. But when people ask, what is the Proper Group? My honest answer is, we don't fully know. Well, let me explain. We do know. We're just building something different. The Proper Group is 70% baked. Our founder, Larry Burns, laid the foundation. Now we're evolving into an elite collective of fractional C-suite leaders driving real sustainable growth. What we're not is a bloated consultancy with junior talent doing the real work, or a siloed agency only focusing on one or two functions. What we are is a cross-functional growth accelerator, a hands-on execution partner embedding with leadership teams. Because when companies grow, they grow fast. And without the right foundation, that growth won't last. That's where we come in. Let's talk, explore what we're building, and see if this would be the right fit for your team. We're just getting started. Come along for the ride. The Proper Group. We're on the move. Visit us at www.theproper.group. Now let's get back to the podcast. Back with Stevi Carr. A quick fire round question. What's one word to describe how you feel about the future?
The word that I would use is optimistic. I am, very conscious of where we are in this climate and ecosystem, and it feels very contentious. But I believe that it's during these darkest of times that seeds are planted, and the creatives and those that are optimistic are the ones that are cultivating the most beautiful futures. And so, optimistic.
I love that. And thanks for being optimistic. The world needs more of that. Let's start at the beginning of the journey, because on paper, it looks like success after success. But I know there have been some pivots along the way that shaped you. Can you share a moment in life where you had a curveball or a wrench, where it got thrown in the middle of the road, where things didn't go planned, and you had to decide how to move forward?
Absolutely. Well, I laughed. I laugh at this question because I think that if anybody were to see the map of my life, it would all just be rights and left turns. Like there is no it's all pivots. And it's not intended, it's not for lack of good planning, right? I'm the type of person that is always parallel path 18 different ways that something could go right or wrong. And it always ends up being the 19th way that I end up taking. One of the ones that I can, recall that have really redefined the success of where I'm at today is the launch of Wise Wellness Guild. I, was excited to leave corporate life and put that behind me and step into becoming an entrepreneur in 2019. I had planned since 2016 to do this and had been doing research and had really built out an entire business model and framework that Wise Wellness Guild was supposed to be a physical location. It was supposed to be a clubhouse where women could come from all different walks of life. Professional women could connect with one another and have access to things that would support them in their pursuit of whole self wellness. So they could be baddies in their career. They could learn how to make money and, invest money and do better with financial wellness, but also feel empowered to take a nap, to work out, to have childcare. It was supposed to be these wraparound services that broke all the barriers for what it took for a woman to invest in her wellness. And I decided that the best time to launch that was going to be in March of 2020. And so I had a great model planned. And as you can imagine, I was getting ready in February to sign on the dotted line for a physical location. And I had started to hear about, rumblings of this virus coming over from Asia, and had thought maybe I should, listen to my gut on this and push pause. And some things happened with the location. The location fell through, and I wasn't able to sign on the dotted line. And then COVID hit, and I realized very quickly the great fortune that how quickly I learned that the universe was really looking out for me. And
someone or something was looking out for you.
I know.
And we know many friends that have gotten that didn't happen. And it really was a very sad, dramatic event, COVID doing that. So, wow.
Absolutely. And the way that I look at it is, very quickly, I had just left my corporate gig, right? I left a paycheck and I had investors that were counting on me to open this physical location. And I walked away from all of that and had to pivot immediately.
Wow.
I look back at my experience at P&G, and I was grateful for the experience of knowing how to run and operate virtual meetings and virtual presentations. So P&G was global. I never really had to be in the office very often. I took my meetings from everywhere my entire career that I was there for about a decade. So I immediately pivoted and launched my first big event in COVID was in partnership with Paycor to do a mental health event in partnership with Paycor and Fifth Third to really kind of talk about mental health in the pandemic and I believe that was in May. And so that pivot really kind of catapulted us into these corporate partnership spaces of really providing wellness programming and resources. But that was just purely because of the relationships that I built. And so for me, I'm really grateful for, the people that reached out to me and said like, hey, would you be interested in doing this? And I'm grateful for myself for having the that how hard can it be, Gene, a little bit that you talk about, like, I can figure it
Yeah.
out, like I can do this, and so,
That's the story. It's fake
right.
it till you make it and
Yeah,
have confidence in yourself. And,
yeah,
way to pull a hybrid model, because you're using the same characteristics that you wanted in a physical space, but then be really kind of figured out how to do it, from a virtual kind of meta state, keeping people engaged when we were all locked in our homes, providing the much needed support that companies needed to make sure that their workforce was supported and whatnot. What a really cool thing. And you should be very proud in regards of what you were able to do to help support during that tragic time. So kudos to you.
Thank you so much. And it really helped me to understand a bit more about what companies needed for me. So by saying yes to these things, I was able to position myself and, be able to also provide partnership opportunities between companies that previously hadn't connected. So, I was able to bring together the Christ Hospital, Fifth Third, First Financial Bank, and, other organizations, P&G and Kroger, like all on the same kind of show, if you will. And that was really wonderful because a lot of executive women at that really high level were also burning out. They really, I have people that I've connected through that experience that are still have gone on to do their own ventures. And so the same way that Dom and Cami connected us, I just feel like that's really the beauty of all of that timing and what happened. That pivot created this beautiful ecosystem that still resonates today with Wise. It's all about just creating this network of experts that can help to support one another, champion each other, refer business, and partner together to create something bigger and better. And so, I'm so grateful for the worst thing that had ever happened to me at the time. So I can look back on that and say, thank goodness.
That's crazy to think about. And it's crazy to think about that. That's been 5 years, it's so crazy.
It also feels
So
like funny.
I think it is true, but kind of flipping the note, I think I know this answer because and I think entrepreneurs get this because this is happening to me, is we become serial entrepreneurs. But basically, the real prompt that I want to ask is, what did that season of your life teach you about yourself?
Yeah, I already knew that I had grit and resilience. Cancer survivor. Even the way I came into this world is kind of a crazy story. My birth father passed, right before I was born. My mom was 7 months pregnant with me. And so I came in a very weird circumstances, and my whole life has kind of been that way. Very grateful, have an incredibly strong family unit. They support me, love me, all of that. But the resilience that I have is, one that I think a lot of people who do go out and start their own company, you start to recognize that you don't know any better. It's not about winning, and it's not about achievement. It's about just becoming who you are, realizing who you are and who you're supposed to be. So what it taught me about I will always find a way, but I have to hold really tightly to my values, hold really tightly to the vision that I want for my life, but hold very loosely to the way that that's going to happen. And so I think previously what my former corporate life taught me is you put together a 10-year plan, you back into that plan with a glide path, you put metrics against that glide path. And life isn't like that anymore, even in the corporate environment. 5-year plans don't really exist because the world is shifting and changing so much. And I feel very fortunate that I know how I react in those situations. And in some cases, whether it's healthy to say this or not, that's when I'm at my best, is when it's high stress, high intense, situations. I can trust my gut because I know myself to know that I'm going to make the choice that's right for me and my business, because I've done the work and I know how to be agile. And I do sometimes miss the 10-year planning and the vision casting and the brand architecture and all of that is, something I long for back in my old days at P&G. But I honestly, I only do that when I'm tired. So I think that just, making sure that I have high resilience and making sure I'm finding places to rest. I'm enjoying the journey a lot more now that I know I can trust myself.
Well, the cool thing is, and I've been very fortunate to see it firsthand, is you've taken and you respect the years that you've learned the traditional values of what a corporate gig gives you, and you've taken those and cherry picked the best parts, but then also you've taken the toxicity out of that. And I think like really, that's something that you do best with like explaining in the workplace of it doesn't have to be toxic. So I'm interesting to know, as someone who now advises top companies, what do you think organizations need to understand about supporting people through these life's pivots? Because these can happen in work, they can happen at home, but we want our people to show up as their best selves. And we got to make sure that it's, a 3, kind of 60, because we need our best people in their best mindset.
Well, and I want to just start by saying that I am such a huge champion of people staying in the workforce, and largely of staying with large corporate companies and staying in corporate. I'm a huge advocate for that. And in my executive coaching practice, that is my singular goal, is to get people to stay where they are, but find their values through that. And I say that because I do believe that companies want to be great. I think they want to have a great place to work. I think they want everybody to feel fulfilled, and achieve peak performance. I really do believe that. I just think that there are sometimes leaders that believe that there's one way to do things, and they don't really recognize the importance of aligning an individual's values with their company values. And they sometimes like to fake it that they're doing, and people can sniff out the lack of authenticity. So I do think that, companies are in the spirit of transparency, like in for a very rude awakening. And it's happening now, especially with the younger generation of people are making decisions to step out of toxic workforces that are not respecting these pivots. And
Yeah.
you do a lot of that. People are saying, I would rather work at a restaurant and make half of what I'm making, because I know that even making what I'm making now, I'm still not going to be able to afford a house. I'm still not going to be able to have the flexibility to travel. So I might as well have a lower stress, better quality of life job by working somewhere that gives me a lot of freedom and flexibility to be who I am. And so what I would say to these organizations of supporting the pivots aren't just in work, they're personal pivots too. I think there's a couple of things. One is being very clear on what your expectations are, and that transparency, but being reasonable about what those expectations are.
Yeah.
I'll have discussions with people. We just on air yesterday on iHeart, I heard a story that somebody was let go for not answering their phone on vacation, even though they communicated that they were going to be off the grid and not available for 7 days. Their role
That's
was
ridiculous.
ridiculous, right? And this leader, which I will not name on here, is a very high profile person. I'm very disappointed in that leader, because I know them. And I, in the spirit of that, I say, it's about that open communication and alignment, and do what you say you're going to do, right? If you say you're going to be about women's rights, be about women's rights. Don't just say it and then not do it, right? That means things
Don't
like,
blow smoke.
right? Don't blow smoke, because people will leave. Good people will leave. They will go find better. I think that, so just being very transparent about that, and leaving room for these pivots of, people have death in the family, people have a change of heart on like what the vision is for their life. And so by allowing them that flexibility in their work plan to be able to allow for them to explore, that flexibility and freedom of their values, I think is really crucial. So knowing who you want your company to be, aligning that and making sure that there is alignment. There are some times when if somebody really values, their finances, but if you're not able to pay them, it doesn't mean that you have to continue to, give them 10% increases every year. Like that may be their expectation. You may not be able to meet that. You have to understand that like you may end up losing them, or maybe it's a reframe of like, here's your total benefits package, or here's what we can do. Or maybe there's some sort of a commission structure that the more that they put in, the more they can get.
Oh yeah, I love that.
right? There's a lot that I think that you can provide to people just by getting to know a little bit more about what matters to them. And that way the pivots end up becoming a little, you can't ever anticipate them, but you definitely know how you can react to them. And you can really, kind of convey that, like, you see them, understand them, and here's what we can offer in order to retain you if you are good. And so that's kind of like my perspective is people just, I think, are really underestimating how many options people in the workforce do have now with the gig economy and with like just
100%.
like, I don't think people want the same things that they used to want.
I love that. And this is such great commentary. And I'm so excited to go on to our next section. And we're going to take a quick break. But our next part will be resilience and really going deeper into that, leadership, and really what your purpose is, the whole self-wellness. So we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back. Now, a quick word from our partners, and then we'll return to In the Making podcast. Wise Wellness Guild is a consultancy and media agency dedicated to advancing individuals and organizations through whole self-wellness. From social media strategy to email marketing, they help brands like yours thrive. Visit wisewellnessguildpartners.com to learn more. Now let's get back to the podcast. Back with Stevi Carr in the middle of our segments. A quick fire round question. What's your favorite daily wellness practice?
I would say that every morning that I get up, I go outside, no matter the temperature or the weather, and I just get some fresh air. Might be the only fresh air that I get the majority of the day because of meetings. And it's just my way to kind of reconnect with nature and really get some air in my lungs and start the day with a fresh perspective.
Yeah, we actually, that came true today. I had to give her a 15-minute window because she wasn't going to be able to eat. So I appreciate it, Stevi.
Thanks.
You and I have talked a lot about resilience, and I know you mentioned it in the previous segment. And for me, that's a core theme in the making. I'm curious when you think about resilience in your own life. And please go deeper into the example you gave earlier, or if you can think of something else that helped you stay grounded or move forward when things felt impossible.
Yeah. Well, when I think of resilience, I first think about like how resilience is cultivated. There are kind of 3 R's of resilience. There's rest, there's recovery, and renewal. A lot of times leaders think that resilience is go, 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 blow past the red flags, blow through the wall like the Kool-Aid man, and you just like keep going. But when we, liken ourselves to, people say you're a machine. Well, even machines have downtime, right? They need, like, even manufacturing plants have to go down because they need maintenance. They need to be turned off and rebooted. They need to replace parts. There's a lot of things that go into that. So I have to always first by saying, like, resilience isn't just about like blowing through and past everything and keep going at all costs. There is a cycle that's related to that. So rest is the first R, and being able to truly like get true deep rest. That's why it's so important to us to sleep those 7 or 8 hours a night. We talk about your brain, the neuroscience behind this is that your brain actually collects a lot of subconscious things throughout the day. So, you might say, I need toilet paper, or like looking out my window right now, I saw a bird. Is that bird going to fly through the window? There's things that you catch on that. Those are all things that stick in your brain. And your brain at night, think about it like a full table. There's all of these thoughts on this like overwhelming table, like a hoarder's table, if you will. And your brain takes that to kind of organize and compartmentalize and takes everything and cleans the table at night when you're in this very deep rest. If the table continues to stay cluttered, it starts to form plaque actually on your brain. And that's where we start to see things like Alzheimer's manifest or memory disorders. And so that brain health, it's absolutely crucial for deep rest and truly unplugging. what we're actually seeing is even in digital culture, rest from technology is absolutely crucial, because so many of these like subconscious cues and hits of dopamine are actually really rewiring the brain's ability to even get into deep rest. So for me, rest is huge. It's something I talk about a ton when it comes to, like really getting into how you build resilience. That recovery is just as important as rest, because recovery is an active movement towards like, how do you actually like restore your body's nutrients? How do you fuel it with the right things? How are you re-energizing your body with movement? How are you putting the right thoughts into your mind? Like, nutrition isn't just food, but it's about how are you bringing in the right nutrition to kind of realign yourself with your values. And then renewal is something that we probably talk the least amount about. When you are at low resilience, which a lot of times is confused with burnout, right? Burnout is a medical condition. Low resilience is, I just don't want to get out of bed today, right?
You don't have the bandwidth.
I don't have the bandwidth. I
Yeah.
can't have this conversation. I need to bump this to the next day. Or like,
Yes.
I'm screaming at the person on the highway because like I'm running late, right? And like you feel like not the best version of yourself. Like that's where low resilience, there's some triggers.
We've all been there.
We've all been there. Renewal is so crucial for like relighting that spark every day, right? And if you don't complete the full cycle, if you don't remind yourself of your why, you're never going to want to actually do the things that it's going to take to get to the next level. Like you won't ever, you could tell yourself, but if you don't feel it in your whole body, you're never going to get there. So for me, when I think about, it's not fight or flight. Like a lot of times people think that resilience is about like survival. And that could be the case, but that's usually what causes burnout. That's like so if you can be in resilience, but you are doing it when you're connected to purpose, when you're connected to your values. For me, I go back to that time when I was crying on the bathroom floor, like thinking, I've thrown my whole life away, my career. I left everything. And now what? Like, I don't have this physical location. For me, it was about saying, is this work still important? Am I still capable of building the life that I want and doing it on my terms? Am I capable of rewriting the rules of my own destiny and leadership? And it was yes to everything. I have everything inside of me to do that. But I also knew that I had to do it in a way that was congruent with my values. So for me, it wasn't about, there were times where I was doing way too much. I was saying yes to everybody that would ask me to do something. And I really was feeling very low on resilience. So I did have to start to really set some boundaries. I've had to quit things that I said yes to. I've had to walk away from really hard relationships that like were going to be really great for me professionally, but very toxic for me personally, and didn't feel in congruence with like the way that
been there.
Well, right? Preach. But like at the end of the day, like those tough moments, it's always coming back to like that sense of self of, is this in pursuit of the life? Nobody else is responsible or accountable for your future than you. Nobody's ever going to care about it as much as you. And honestly, people care a lot less and think about you a lot less than you think they do. And so
100%.
so I think that that's the part that I just really started to realize of like, if you really want this, you're going to have to do it yourself. And you've got to figure out a way to like really strengthen yourself in a way that doesn't overwhelm you, that you can enjoy this and really like enjoy this journey, I think is like the biggest thing. And so that's really been a huge part of like, I have to intentionally think about closing that 3R cycle in order for me to get up every day. And it's hard. There's days that I'm terrible at it. But I don't know about you, but if you find yourself like you do the most also, and I'm sure that you probably also have moments where you're like, oh, I really like just need a breather, right? I really need like an exhale. Do you take those moments, Michael? Like, do you kind of close that loop a little bit?
I do. That's a good question. I think, I'm, kind of becoming a serial entrepreneur and, have a lot of things on my top of my burner. But I really, only take on things that I think are going to, help move me forward, help move those people along with me forward.
Yeah.
And also, is it manageable, like time wise? Because I think that's one thing that I've learned, and a lot of my bosses and career coaches and whatnot taught me time management and taught me that I have to scoop. We only get a certain amount, to quote Hoda Kotb, we only get a certain amount of your time pie, and you don't have more to give. So what makes most sense in just prioritizing? And my friends and family are a big part of that. So that's going to be a no question, no brainer. And then really what's going to move the needle for me, both intellectually, spiritually, mentally. So yeah, sometimes you just have to say no, even when there's an opportunity that you're like, oh my gosh, I could do this and this could take off.
Right.
So yeah. So I love the 3 R's, and kind of to close the loop with this, with Wise Wellness Guild, is that part of your core kind of methodology that you're working with your clients and whatnot? And can you kind of maybe, expand upon what you all are doing that differentiates you, the secret sauce of, Wise Wellness Guild?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I think about integrating the 3 R's, I integrate that not only in our executive coaching kind of pillar, but also in the brand building consulting space. In the executive coaching space, what I find is I'm a lot of times working with very high achieving individuals, executives, physicians, former Olympians, people who have achieved the highest levels of success and are saying, is this it? Like, is this all that this is, right? Like, what's next? How can I start to build a legacy? I'm feeling a little burnt out. Like, I want to go on and do more. So it's such an integral and like very simple tactic to like align with people about those 3 buckets of the 3 R's of what are things that you start to integrate and almost habit stack at an individual level of getting that in on a daily basis to close that loop. Sleep is such a great anchor, but there's also opportunities to manage your ultradian rhythms throughout the day. Ultradian rhythms are simply just like energy levels. They're 90 and 120 minute increments of like kind of when your energy bursts and when it comes down. And if you can learn how to harness that, you can really kind of understand your productivity peaks and valleys and how to structure your day. And what I found is the results are outstanding, because once people can really start to organize their day and really take control over their day and build habits to support those ultradian rhythms, they can then, the 3 R's just become a natural part of their day. I have clients that like no longer use an alarm clock because their like bodies are already so in sync. And that's when that peak performance, right? Of like, they're so in tune with like what their body needs for fuel, how they need to be intellectually stimulated. When they've hit their brink, like how do they need to be renewed with social time? And how do they align that with their spouse? How do they align that with their boss? Is something that a lot of work that we do. And I just feel very proud from an individual standpoint that like we've gotten there, because a lot of people are like, help me get a new job. And I'm like, I'm going to do you one more. We're going to change your life. Like, which is kind of cool. And then what I would say on the brand side is just very simply, when you have leaders who understand the value in this, you can better connect with your who and your target for like brand repositioning. So if you know that you're targeting, high income households, or you're targeting like the busy mom, or the women are, 85% of household decision makers, right? Yep. So like they're spending the most in terms of packaged goods, services, all of that. So if they're spending their money with brands that resonate most with them, how do you position yourself to afford them permission to invest in themselves? And so the 3 R's are a really great way to kind of align yourself to, are you providing them a way to rest, to, renew? Are you finding a way that you can have an opportunity to position, like really giving them something that they need so badly? And so that has been crucial for us to really think about unlocking different opportunities for the way brands can speak to their consumers.
I love that. And I think it's a really awesome kind of leeway into this last question, but I think you and I are very similar. And the reason why I did In the Making, the book, was because I've had a lot of wrenches thrown my way. And I thought like you had to go one way and it was only that way, maybe being from a small town. And, I had a very good family that gave me a lot of things, but a lot of things we built are on our own back. And so I think we have, in our head and in our DNA, this PTSD that you got to keep going, you got to keep climbing, you got to keep. And so I love that you've used your personal kind of experience and even your pivot from COVID to kind of build into your business model of like lessons you learned to help people, maybe alleviate or at least soften the burden when this happens to them. So with this, I want to ask your elevator kind of 30 seconds, and I know everybody's different, so it's probably going to be hard, but I think you can scoop this up. But what's something we can all do today to care for ourselves as we navigate tough moments?
I think that it's first just recognizing that everything is temporary, that it won't be like this forever. And any decision that we make, there's always an opportunity to, with almost every decision, not all of them, but almost every decision, to make a different decision if you decide to. So we talked about saying yes to something and having regret, right? You can say no. And a lot of times the buildup of like the nervousness of disappointing other people usually is worse than the actual saying no of things. And I just want people to remember that if you take the time to really get to know who you are and what serves you, and you take accountability over your own personal self in this world, that you are already doing the hard work. You are solving that. So you are no longer a mystery to yourself. You can trust yourself and you can know how you want to project yourself to the world. You can know where you want to go. So that's the number one thing for me, is
I
like
love that.
a little selfish, right? Disappoint people. It's
not
a part
selfish. It's
but,
life.
But selfish is not also a bad thing, right? Like it's a bit of being selfish is important for us to be self-indulgent in order to fill ourselves up, because no one else is going to do that for us.
Well, just like you need to respect others, you also need to respect yourself. And I think that plays a big part of that. So that leads to what's going to come next. And we're going to flip the mic. Obviously I got books to sell. So Stevie's going to ask me some questions that kind of are relatable to what the content in the book are, but we'll be right back. Now, a quick word from our partners, and then we'll return to In the Making podcast. Hi, it's Michael again, and I'm excited to let you know of the launch of our digital copy of In the Making book. Now let's get back to the podcast. Okay, as a transition, we're going to do a fun quick fire round with my guest, Stevi Carr. Stevie, a lot of the book has a lot of fun elements, a lot of, learnings and all the things. What's a song that always lifts your spirit and why?
Ooh, My Way by Frank Sinatra. I just love that song so much. It really kind of gets me going. I love old music like that. And just really, I'm very nostalgic in a lot of ways, reminds me of my family.
Such an oldie, but a goodie. Thanks, Stevie.
All right, Michael. So now that we're flipping the mic, I'm excited to dive in a little bit.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Yeah, absolutely. We're all in the making, as you say, and you asked me about pivots and about, my most unexpected moments. But we didn't really talk about yours. I'd love to hear, are there moments in your life that really you had to pivot, and how they shaped you today?
Well, that's a great question. And yeah, I think, every step of my life, from a young child to young adult to midlife in my career, there's been, wrenches in the road. But I think the one thing that a lot of people see as that as a burden, but I learned very young that these can be opportunities too, opportunities to grow, opportunities to learn. And so, we're going to be doing this segment with different guests, and sometimes it will be content that's in the book, content that's not in the book. I kind of want to lead with, one that's not in the book. And I think this goes to, I wrote the book in 3 lenses, the young kind of me out of college thinking I have to go take over the world. I'm going to be CEO and I'll do everything and anything to get a title jump. The second is, kind of where I am in my current life, didn't want to really continue in the corporate life. I was sick and tired of making people, money, whether that be, CEOs or shareholders. Don't get me wrong. It's been a very fruitful career and it's given me a lot of resources, but I know that there's more than that. And then lastly, really what we're doing at the Proper Group is really a lot of the folks who join us are people who have equitied out, have, had the opportunity to leave a high impressive role and don't want to go back in and don't want to work full time. So work when they want to, and then bring value to these small and medium businesses that those businesses wouldn't be able to get. And so really what I think is we all have different, kind of wrenches that's just going to get us to the next level of growth. And so I'm going to go back to one of my favorite all-time bosses. This is when I was at Gannett. Gannett is one of the largest media companies in the country. It was my first big job, kind of like the, executive role, starting, it helped build my brand here in Cincinnati. Gannett owns the Inquirer in Cincinnati.com. So I got to do some really cool stuff with that. But I was always a regional role, and I always had higher arc above me in regards of hierarchical kind of status. And, I was doing all the right things. I was bringing new initiatives. I was really helping the company transform from a print to a digital company, all the things that they hired me. And, every time I had a review, I would get disappointed because I would come in thinking, oh, I'm going to get the next, VP title, or I'm going to get the senior director title, or I'm going to get whatnot. But my boss, Amy Jolly, and she is the most jolliest, best person in the world. And she's on my board of directors. She's like, Mike, when you're hungry for it, you're not going to get it. And then when you're least expecting, that's when it happened. She's like, I made it as a senior vice president in this company because I just did the job, put the work in, and there was no expectations. You get compensated for what you do. And that if you're really focused on hitting your KPIs, your goals, being a good leader, being a good mentor, being a good coworker, then it will just naturally happen, And so I think that was an aha moment. And really, the first time I am like, why am I climbing, so fast, stop and smell the roses, enjoy and learn. I'm surrounded by so many smart people. And, sometimes I think we get in our own head and our own ego that we're the smartest people in the room. That really made me take a step back. And it's like, how do I bring people around me that are smarter than me? Yeah, I may be, a badass in certain things, but I'm not a badass at everything. So how do I complement what I'm doing, become a better leader, become a better friend, become a better colleague, and create better products? And so it just gave me an aha moment of take a step back and smell the roses. And, she is someone who has, Amy, who I'm referencing, is someone who has just followed my career. I've known her for over 10 years now. And she's just been one of those people who I go to when I have big life decisions, because that was such a pivotal moment for me. So, but it also, I know it's not a huge, but
what I love about that so much is that it also goes to show how you make your money might not also be the most important for what you need to shape the rest of your life, right? There's a little bit of that's outside of your control of if you get that promotion, if you get that raise, and you may be focusing on something that's not within your control because of other influences, right? And I love her perspective of do the work, it'll come when it's time. But if you're not feeling like you're getting in the nutrition by putting your energy where you can control it, I think is so
100%.
great. And that's what you did, right? You kind of looked up and out and said, how can I build relationships? How can I smell the roses? And maybe find the things that maybe are filling those gaps or holes or things that I'm hungry for.
It's so true. And
Yeah.
I'm so grateful. And like I said, it's helped, I think it's one of the big key milestones that, even though it was 10 years later, that made me go down this path, moving forward. So
Yeah, that's amazing. And, I just wonder, as you're thinking about this, this moment of, as you're building this and you get that feedback and how that feels, you know, how do you think that, like, as a young person that hears that, I know that 23-year-old me would roll their eyes and be like, that's just like an old, old person who isn't ambitious anymore or whatever. But that you and I know that that's not the case, right? Look where we are now. I think that, that's so important. What would you say to that person? I think that, like, is going to be having that reaction, because I just imagine myself being like, well, I know better than you, right? Like, you were that person.
100%. I was that person. Yeah, it's kind of funny. We're in a funny phase, we're in that right midlife of our phase where old people still think we're young and young people think we're old. And so we're kind of in a mix. So, I try to be relatable and hip, but I get that. I think it's leading by example. And that's really how Amy did it for me is, she was only, 5-6 years older than me, but she showed, through her, I kind of followed her model in regards of, showing up, stop listening. How can I support others? And it just naturally happened. And I can tell you, I saw Amy, progress in her career in the 6 years that I was at Gannett, and it was exciting. And the cool thing is, it's always smart. I kind of latched on with her, and she kind of, after I listened to that feedback and whatnot, and really was intentional, and she saw that, I was able to hold on to her feathers and kind of climb the organization and do that. So I think it's like a point where we, I think we are still kids when we're 23 and 24. We still haven't grown to our full potential. And, I really say that, whether it's the Achilles heel or whatever, the rise of Saturn, whatever we're looking at doing, is that pivotal moment in between 27 and 32, life comes into perspective. Like, I think you're starting to establish yourself. You're starting to get more confidence. You've been doing the work, so you're becoming an expert. And I think, like, that just automatically, sets in. And sometimes you just need pushed and told by a mentor. And so I think there's no natural, I think the, cynical, 23, 24, 25-year-old is like, yeah, I'm not going to listen to you, F you. But it's just naturally going to happen. And, like, I just say, find those mentors who are really doing big things. Most of those people aren't doing those things and getting those promotions because they're doing it selfishly. They're doing it because they have empathy for others. They're bringing people along for the ride, and they're basically trying to take out any roadblock so others can, kind of move forward. So, yeah.
I think that that's so important and powerful. And for anybody who's listening, just knowing that this process is not linear. As I mentioned, there's a lot of different pivots and ways that you're going to take your life. And whatever you think it's going to be, you're going to get to where, along the journey where there's going to be moments and you're going to say, I have no idea what I'm doing, or this is all a mess, or I want to, like, leave it be. So I'd wonder if you join me in, like, a vulnerability moment, Mike. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to share with them, was there a moment where you were just like, this is chaos, like, this is crazy, this is messy, and, like, how you kind of stepped into that and just embraced it a bit to kind of keep you going, like, in the spirit of resilience and kind of moving the ball forward?
I think, like, at the end of the day, we sometimes can get stuck in the muckiness of thinking a good idea is good, and then it's not good, and then backpedaling. But I really go back to like bringing other people who are smarter than you around the table, because it has taught me how to be risk averted. And, at a certain point in your career, you don't want to have a ton of risk that's just on you. So I think it's really key and crucial to bring just a diverse mindset. And, I'm not just saying, how we look, but also just from people from different walks that have had different experiences and whatnot. And so, yeah, I've had a ton of those where it's like, oh shit, or, I can remember, Cincinnati Taco Festival. It was the first one, and we let the promoter not turn the ticket sales off. And our first year event, it was a beautiful event, but we sold 15,000 tickets in the first year, and the event was only built for 7,000. So it caused, it's a 90-10 kind of. 90% of the people who attended the event was happy with the event. The other 10 who weren't, who had to stand in the lines and didn't get their tacos or their margaritas or tequila, they're going to be the loudest ones on, social media and give you the feedback and whatnot. But it's those kind of things that you let greed, I think, overcome what the objective was. And, I can go into more details, but I don't want to bore you. But like at the end of the day, the objective was, let's create a really cool experience that highlights our food reporters, leading, more digital centric millennials, Gen Zers to be more attracted to our brand, exposing those benefits to those younger readers in new ways. And so I think like really the big thing is like, don't be greedy. And stick to your original convictions of what your original goals were. Our original goals weren't 15,000 people. It was 7,500 people. And that's a lot for a first year event.
That is a lot.
And let's stick to your guns and bring the right people around you who are going to basically tell you no.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to bring a smart group of a diverse mindset to go along the ride with you, because they're going to look at it in different lenses, have different life experiences, and just make you better in the engagement better. So.
Well, yeah. And I think it's also, you're just speaking to something that I think is so important, is the power of failing in a very public way. I think is one of the most important things that can happen to somebody in their career, because once it happens, then it's done. And then it's like, okay, and I learned that lesson. And then your fear of the judgment of, it was still an incredible event. Like if your KPI was get as many people, as possible to come to this event and for impressions and eyeballs and engagement. I mean, what an incredible thing. But also like the backlash, the learning on that is, like you said, like the greed of like doing what we came to do and say what we're going to do. It's just all a part of the learning, right? Like
it's a life lesson.
It really is, of like that failing publicly, though, you learn so much about yourself and like your ego. And like you learn a lot about how you feel about yourself during those moments, and like holding your head up high about the things that you could control and the things that you couldn't control. Maybe you just do better next time. And so that kind of takes me to my next question of like, in the spirit of in the making, like, and we're all in the making, right? But if you could give a piece of advice to somebody who is in this and, kind of one of those three buckets, one of those three versions of you, right, that you're writing to in the book, what would it be?
I think, therapy helped me, and the reason why I did this book is, during COVID, I think we all, went and tried to seek help, professionally. And, my therapist is like, document this journey. This world's going to look a lot different. You're going to be a different person, document things that inspire you, document things that, you're listening to, podcasts, other books that are self-help or business that's going to take you to your next level. I think that is really the whole collection of what In the Making is, because I wanted to give people who may be going through, this pivot in whatever phase of their life, kind of an upper hand of the, kind of messiness or the failures or the things I didn't know until, I kind of lived it. And so I just think it's really important to step back and smell the roses, appreciate those around you. But then also just like, what is fueling you? We all have to keep on pressing go, but like, what are things you're doing that really is fueling you to be passionate and moving forward, and what makes you wake up in the morning? So I think like that was a real big lesson for me. And I think anything you can do to help give people the upper hand, you're putting good ethos back into the universe, and hopefully a return. And I'm, selfishly, I want good ethos to come back to me
Of course.
in the universe, and good vibes and whatnot.
Yeah.
But like, if I can help one person with this, and maybe, I may only get 100, book, sold, but
If you can get 15,000 people to a taco festival, I think that you're going to have a little bit more than that.
I mean, tacos are pretty damn good.
And if I do say so, I have had a preview of the book to anybody who's listening. And what I really like, this is the roadmap. This is the tool that I wish I would have had when I was starting a new chapter in my life. I think that it, for me, speaks so much. It's so inspiring because it gave me permission to be in the messy middle, and to be in a place where I could feel permission to know that I wasn't the first person that was going to experience this, and gave me permission to kind of explore myself a bit. And, that to know that not everything has to be on like a timeline, that it can be all a part of a journey. So I want you to
and I kind of really just on that, Stevie, and we'll kind of end this segment on me, because enough about me, but I did have, a CEO in my career that gave me really good advice. And this was more about the product and the services that we provided. And we were kind of in the forefront of what this product was, and I won't name names. But he gave me really a sound advice that, sometimes it's not easy being the first, and it's easier to learn from the failures of those who went first. And I think I've applied that to my life. And, love him or hate him, he gave me really good sound advice that, really kind of I've adapted to everything I do. It's like, first, we're marketers by trade, Stevie. I know you're in the wellness space, but that's deep down inside who we are. But like, it's like in our work and in our field, we research the competition. We understand what's out there. We steal shamelessly and make it better. And so I think we can take that approach, and kind of what I'm doing with this book, that's kind of what I'm kind of foreshadowing for everyone. So, yeah.
That's great. Well, I'm just such an honor to have the opportunity to interview you back, and, kind of talk about, your own resilience journey, to talk about, being vulnerable, embracing the mess. And I think just like really being able to have a framework with this book that I hope other people will find just as inspiring as I have.
Well, I appreciate that. And we're going to take a short break, and we're going to do a follow-up wrap up, and really kind of reflections and takeaways of what this was. And we hope you're enjoying this, and more to come. Now, a quick word from our partners, and then we'll return to In the Making podcast. Wise Wellness Guild builds healthy brands and experiences that help humans thrive. From brand consulting to advertising opportunities, Wise can help grow your business. Visit wisewellnessguildpartners.com to get started. Now let's get back to the podcast. Okay, back with another quick fire with my guest, Stevi Carr. What's a book or podcast or both you're obsessed with right now?
I will always say outside of this podcast and your book, but
love you.
I love No Stupid Questions. Angela Duckworth, who wrote Grit, is one of my absolute favorite authors, psychologists, and true like thought leaders in this space. And so her and her co-host Steven are just really relatable. They bring really highbrow concepts and really break them down. And their structure of their podcast is just chef's kiss. I also love that they do fact checking, which to me is just so wonderful, because they admit that maybe everybody doesn't have it all right. It's just, kind of shows a little bit of the process.
I love that. Thank you, Stevie. back. Stevie, thank you so much for being here today. This was a perfect way to launch In the Making. Your story and wisdom is such a great gift, and your friendship is even more. I'm so glad that we built something special this year. And, we have a lot of exciting things that you and I are going to be working on this next year that we haven't shared yet, but a little teaser alert. For everyone listening, if today's conversation resonated with you, please, follow, share, and stay connected, because we'll be having more of these real, raw conversations about resilience, growth, and life's unexpected turns from people from all over walks of life. And it's going to be very special. Stevie, just for those people, which they're crazy if they're not already following you, where can you find you and Wise Wellness Guild, and if they want to connect with you?
Absolutely. So the first thing is you can get weekly wellness to your inbox for free. So if you go to wisewellnessguild.com, you can sign up for our newsletter, and that's like the easiest way for you to just start to engage with us. We're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, myself. So I'm under Stevi Carr on LinkedIn, and I'm always kind of posting different elements, some tools, tricks, things that I think are really crucial and important for leaders to really focus on their expertise and really help to think about intentionality in legacy building through the lens of whole self wellness. So that's where I would say follow me there, and we can connect. If you are interested in getting to know a little bit more about what we do for Wise Wellness Guild on the consulting side, you can check out wisewellnessguildpartners.com. You can find, access, just Google us.
And we'll also prompt those with video editing somewhere.
Awesome. Perfect. That sounds great. Yep. And I think just, for me, I'm really excited about the future of, our partnerships and how these are coming to life. And I'm excited to just continue to hear more stories about In the Making, and more stories of other people's kind of pivots, of their messy middles, of, their stories of resilience, because ultimately that's what inspires me is, getting to connect with people like you, who are willing to be open and honest and vulnerable, and know where we can, strengthen each other. Iron sharpens iron, for sure.
Amen. Well, awesome. And thank you so much once again. And if you want to keep up with In the Making, follow along on our socials, Michael Betz, and check out the book coming soon. Until next time, keep embracing the pivots and honoring your own story, because we are still in the making. Stevie, thank you so much. And I look forward to continue to collaborate with you and to celebrate and hopefully right along with a lot of the things that you're hoping to shape others' futures and just creating such a dynamic empire. So thank you. Be sure to tune in to our next episode featuring Matt Fogarty, the founder of Cherry Willow Apparel. He will go through his journey and where he's at in the making. Stay tuned.